Warning, the following program was produced for traditional broadcast television. Over 12 minutes of commercials have been removed, but interruptions are still included. Thank you for watching.
We've talked about Bitcoin mining. These kind of data centers can be a real asset because it provides this demand response element that helps balance the power load. Yet AI data centers are often viewed as kind of like this leech on resources.
AI data centers must be built in America because that's a part of national security. Because you don't want the adversary to have access to AI technology. And in order to prevent adversaries to have access to that technology is to build data centers in the United States and have them operated here on American chips. And we need to make sure we embrace it using that tool in a good way.
Government officials insist we will continue to keep you informed as this story unfolds.
Welcome to the Money Block with Matthew J. Moore, the Bitcoin-focused program that's waking the masses to the fiat money Ponzi scheme. Money is changing, and your freedom is at stake. So stick around and learn how to empower yourself for this new digital age. Now, here's your host, Matthew J. Moore.
And so, welcome America, welcome world, no matter where you are. Maybe you're tuned in online, maybe you're watching on television. We want to welcome all you Bitcoin newbies, lovers, and experts. This is the Money Block, America's Bitcoin-focused TV and radio show syndicated on BizTV. That's right, east to west here in America. So, Matt, what are we talking about today, Matt? Well, good question, because we have a topic that if you're not familiar with Bitcoin, maybe you've heard the term Bitcoin mining, maybe you're really familiar with it. But the point is, the industry is changing. And today we've got a great topic. We're going to be talking about how there's the Bitcoin mining is taking a pivot into AI. And so we're going to explore that with our wonderful guest today. On the line is a gentleman. His name is Sergii Gerasymovych, and he is with a company. He's the CEO of Easy Blockchain, and he knows a thing or two when it comes to mining and data centers. But Sergei, let's do this real quick. We got a short little window here in our first segment, but I hear Bitcoin mining might not be sexy anymore. Are they pivoting to AI? Is it over? I mean, explain to the people why this pivot here. And I'm excited to explore this because I think this is going to have major impact on the industry.
Thank you, Matt, for having me. Well, it's almost over. Most of Bitcoin miners are moving to AI just because that's where the money is. We have been struggling, and I'm one of those miners. We have been struggling a lot for a few years, trying to figure out how we can cooperate and work with energy infrastructure in the United States. And honestly, in one locations, we have been kind of haunted. In other locations, we were embraced. And right now, we have been struggling far too long. And Bitcoin miners are thinking, not only they are already moving to AI world, meaning they are building data centers for a different type of a compute. So Bitcoin is becoming basically a secondary line of business, and AI is becoming the first one. And rightly so, because the demand from hyperscale world and from a big customers, and honestly from users like me and yourself, who are just using ChatGPT most likely, are driving that demand, and people just kind of bring up the supply up.
So, I mean, we've got about a minute before we have to run to break, but I want to pick your brain on this. So does that mean that Bitcoin mining is going to be more of a supplemental part of a data center or business instead of just having these main huge Bitcoin mining operations?
I think so. Honestly, data centers specifically for AI, they have to run 24/7 without interruptibility. And I think if you pair the AI data center with Bitcoin mining, you can actually have a good symbiosis of, two high density compute users, but one of them can be shut off at any moment, which will help to balance the grid, and at the same time to help those users which are completely all the time online to not shut down when there is an ask from the grid.
Makes sense. Well, I look forward to diving more into that. We got a lot to cover on today's episode, but if you guys are watching this and you're like, hey, I don't understand Bitcoin, I don't understand Bitcoin mining, well, start with the basics. Download my book, Foundations for Liberty. It'll give you the explanations of what is money, what makes good money. Start there. I guarantee you that'll help you in this process. You'll see a little QR code there. But in the meantime, we got to run to break, so when we come back, we're going to cover more with our guest Sergei about the challenges that Bitcoin miners are having and where where this whole thing is going. All right, we'll see you guys after this break. What does it mean to be physically, spiritually, and financially free? The right to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness, these were the ideas that made America. But what happens to these ideas when America's money becomes compromised? What do you do when the very thing that you're working for day after day is fundamentally designed to enslave you? Whether it was a conspiracy or not, you won't believe what is about to happen in this country. Arm yourself today with the truth and build your life on the foundations for liberty. Rediscover freedom in the 21st century and grab a copy of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. For just $11.99, you can support this radio show by finding a copy on Amazon or by going to mattjmoore.com. Again, that's mattjmoore.com. Don't wait, because freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is segment 2, round 2 of the Money Block. That's right, we are America's Bitcoin-focused traditional TV, radio show, and yes, we're online too. So if you're watching online, be sure to give us a like, comment, subscribe, be a part of the conversation. Maybe you're new to this space. Maybe you've been into Bitcoin for a while. Heck, maybe you even have mined or currently are mining Bitcoin. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that is very interesting, because I think if you've been in the space for some time, or maybe you've been reading up on Bitcoin mining, you'll notice that there's this pivot going on in the industry, going to AI. And so AI data centers are the big talk right now. Is Bitcoin mining just going to be supplemental? What does the future look like? Well, today we have a wonderful guest to cover some of these topics. His name is Sergii Gerasymovych, and he is the CEO of Easy Blockchain, and he's involved in, or has been, or is currently involved in Bitcoin mining. So, Sergei, I want to pick up our conversation here. When we went to break, we just kind of teased the topic a little bit here, but how's this pivot with Bitcoin mining affecting you and your business? How aggressively are you taking that pivot from Bitcoin mining to AI, and are you going to maintain a Bitcoin element to your business?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, thank you. There are a couple of things to unpack here. One, how is it affecting us? Well, the demand from AI data centers is affecting us drastically, because now we have a real competition on the power level, meaning there are companies who want to buy power on the large chunks the same way as we used to buy power from the grid before. Before, probably like 5-7 years ago, you only were competing with maybe manufacturing companies and maybe like paper mill companies and aluminum smelters, but those businesses were not as growing as fast as this ones. So you were kind of on your own. Today, if you are going to any location to build a Bitcoin mining farm, you definitely are facing competition from AI data centers. So there's literally no choice but actually, to kind of pivot the same way. As they say, if you can't beat them, join them. So this is literally that type of situation. You have to figure out what is the way, and if you have the place here for yourself or for your company. So pivoting to AI I think, is a natural path here, because Bitcoin miners have the same type of skill set that they had for Bitcoin mining. They would apply that for AI data centers, meaning you can find power, you can develop a greenfield site, you can develop the building, and you can run high-density computing. They may say there's a lot of controversy around it. It's like, well, it is a little bit different, it's more complicated. It is, but Bitcoin mining is not an easy industry. It has been a very complicated industry, and you have to kind of learn on the fly. AI data centers are not, honestly, traditional data centers. They have more similarities with the Bitcoin mining than with the traditional data centers. They are high-density computing. They use tons of power. They need to be developed pretty fast. Same with Bitcoin mining. So I think where we stand today is pivot is just a natural thing.
So, but when we look at the AI pivot, is it primarily because the margins are smaller with Bitcoin mining compared to AI data centers? They're willing to also pay more for electricity. Talk to us about the dynamics there, because there is a difference in how these operations run.
Absolutely. Well, I've been in this space for almost 9 years, and I'll tell you, it's never been a year when it was easy, right? So, and you ask yourself a question: if I've been so long doing this, and the industry is still kind of non-mature, do you want to stay in it for another 10 years, another 9 years, right? So I think the answer is probably not. You do want to think about what's the next in this pivot, what's the next in this industry. What I can see that Bitcoin mining is becoming very, very complicated business because of the hardware scarcity and hardware being updated so fast. So you basically have to constantly invest capital into crypto mining equipment. And as you mentioned, the margins are thin. Bitcoin mining is a very competitive business. You have big companies that are mining Bitcoin all over the country and all over the world, honestly, where the power is very cheap. And it's becoming very complicated and hard to maintain those margins, especially when there is so much uncertainty and Bitcoin is a speculative asset. AI, on the contrary, it's a future. It's the projects that people building are like with 10 to 15 year ROI. You're looking for a long term. You're looking for a different type of offtake, and that's why you're thinking, well, am I going to be just supplying a speculative asset class, or am I going to be part of the future? And I think the answer is you want to be part of the future.
So do you think that hyperscalers, things like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they can lock in these massive power deals? Is there any benefit or is there any incentive for them to eventually mine Bitcoin themselves and have that part of their operation? Do you think that's a plausible thing?
It's a very good question. I have been thinking about this for quite some time. I think the only way those hyperscalers can implement Bitcoin mining would be as a curtailment load. That means the load that you have to shut down within seconds when the grid sends you a signal. I think that's beneficial for hyperscale customers. Honestly, I've seen Google and NVIDIA have been pitching to the world, honestly, that they've been telling, well, we can actually shut down our data center, our workloads, and help the grid. Well, honestly, I don't believe that's true. I don't believe at this point you can actually shut down that workload. But Bitcoin mining, you can. So I think not probably hyperscalers who are going to participate in it, but mid-size companies, mid-size neoclouds, as they call them, will probably get some type of Bitcoin mining as a part of their load on the grid.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we've seen in the industry, Bitcoin mining can be a net positive for society and community. And when you talk about the grid and the demand response element that we've discussed in previous shows as well. But Bitcoin mining seems to have also been maybe a precursor for the build out necessary for some of this AI stuff. Is that a proper, look or analysis on what Bitcoin mining has done?
There is a conspiracy theory going on in the Bitcoin mining community that AI created Bitcoin so we can go and capture all this power so then they can come and take over. And the longer I live, the more I start to believe in it, I'll be honest with you. So Bitcoin miners are the groups that are perfectly structured to actually get into Bitcoin, into AI data center world, because we already have access to massive amounts of power. And where we stand today is that those hyperscalers, those AI companies are working with Bitcoin miners, which is a new thing. Actually, like a few days ago, Cantor Fitzgerald, it's a big investment bank, started covering Bitcoin mining companies, calling them AI infrastructure. So I think it is perfect, like Act 1, right? And Act 2 would be using the same infrastructure for AI data centers.
Yeah, and so, we've got maybe a couple minutes left in this segment here, but I do want to ask you this. So are you bearish on overall the Bitcoin promise and network of being digital sound money? Because we know that the larger the network grows, the more hash rate it has, the more secure it is. And artificial intelligence, I think, and from what I've seen, would prefer assets like Bitcoin in a digital world that can be fractional, decentralized, no middleman involved. So what's your take on the future of Bitcoin if Bitcoin mining is looking so bleak?
I think Bitcoin mining itself will never go away. There will be a support of Bitcoin as a network. I'm not bearish on Bitcoin at all. The problem has been that Bitcoin miners have been kind of sitting aside from all this crypto, hype, and a lot of like bad actors created a lot of bad tokens, and that drove Bitcoin price down as well, because Bitcoin has been associated with crypto, and if it's associated with crypto, all crypto is bad. That's how people think. And we are Bitcoin miners. We basically building an electrical infrastructure, doing hard work, and yet we have not been receiving those returns that we expected. And unfortunately, that has been a pivotal decision for many companies to move on into AI data centers.
Good point. And I just want to let you guys know that if you're watching this program and you're thinking, okay, Bitcoin mining, I probably need to go a little bit deeper. Bitcoin itself, maybe you have questions about Bitcoin itself. Well, you need to understand money. You need to understand where this world is going, why Bitcoin might be a solution, and in my opinion is a solution for this massive new digital wild, wild west that we're entering into, and the promises that are coming down the road. But to understand the fundamentals of money, I would download my book, Foundations for Liberty. You're going to see a QR code right here. I do a really great breakdown about how money works, where it gets its value. And so just go ahead and get that. That's my way of saying thank you for tuning in. And if you have questions or thoughts, well, hey, comment below if you're watching online. Send me a message. You can visit me at mattjmoore.com. And Sergey, before we run to break real quick, where can people follow you and learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm on X, Sergii Gera, and I'm also on LinkedIn, Sergii Gerasymovych, and I have a personal website, gerasymovych.com.
I love it. All right. Well, I would say that, Bitcoin mining has, in my opinion, still has a future. I know we're having some very gloomy conversations here, but as we come into the next segment, we're going to dive into what that future looks like. We're going to unpack that even more. So I need you guys to stay with me, stick around, and we'll do our very best to paint the picture of what the future looks like, especially if you're a miner or invested in Bitcoin. All right. We'll be right back after this break. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is segment 3, round 3 of the Money Block. America's Bitcoin syndicated focused radio, TV. We're all over the place. Heck, if you're watching online, just give us a like, comment, subscribe, be a part of that conversation. And if you guys are there sitting at home thinking, hey, I've heard about Bitcoin, I've heard about Bitcoin mining, I need to do some more research, that's fine. We try to cover a lot of different aspects, those who are new, those who are well experienced in the space as well. And today we're talking about the industry at large when it comes to Bitcoin mining and where it's going, because a lot of them are pivoting to AI, or maybe they're incorporating AI data centers into their business model. But today we've been talking to a wonderful guest, Sergii Gerasymovych, and he is the CEO of a company called Easy Blockchain. And Sergey, I want to pick up our conversation here. I live in Oklahoma, and we have a lot of oil and gas sites, and so the whole idea of these mobile units where you can set up, have a generator, capture this flare gas at these sites in remote locations. This is wasted energy that's bad for the environment, but it's being captured, being harnessed, monetized through Bitcoin mining. Seems like that is a really cool thing, a really great thing for society in general, but where's this part of the business going? You've been involved in Bitcoin mining. Have you been involved in this element of the business? And where do you think that element of the business is going?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's actually, as a matter of fact, we have been one of the first companies who started harnessing natural gas from flares into electricity right on the field and converting that into Bitcoin right on the fields in North Dakota, West Texas, as well as New Mexico. I've been doing this back in 2018. And since then, we have exited that business in around 2022. The reason to that is it's a very complicated business, especially because you have to finance natural gas generation, and natural gas generation, so technically, I mean, it's just physical assets. And if you are doing any business with Bitcoin back in a day, you would not be able to get any financing. So everything would have been invested upfront with cash, which is very hard, right? So you couldn't grow the business. In terms of like the feasibility of this business definitely works. We've done it. We've built sites as big as 10 megawatts. 10 megawatts, imagine it's like a small neighborhood. Probably it's mid-sized neighborhood of usage of electricity. It is a very good project, but we were hoping that we're going to get some incentives from the government, or at least no one actually preventing us doing it. But on the contrary, it was just very hard to get permits to permit the generators in the field. It was very hard to obtain any financing for natural gas generator. And eventually we couldn't keep up with that pressure. And we had to pivot to using Bitcoin mining only on the grid.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that it's more viable for these energy companies that are already doing, natural gas, oil, all these operations? Does it make more sense for energy companies to do this and have it be a supplemental part of their business model versus than somebody just making it their complete business?
100%. Matt, I'm glad you brought it up. It's exactly the way it can work. And that's why first we wanted to buy gas from oil and gas companies. Then eventually we pivoted to selling them the whole system. We were telling oil and gas companies basically, look, you guys own your natural gas, you own your natural gas generator, and you own your Bitcoin. We will be just the company who will come and set this up for you and just run it for you. So that was a success. The only issue we had to bump into was honestly the pandemic. And that's when the oil and gas companies were not investing any money in anything at that point. But in general, oil and gas companies, energy companies who have access to energy in the form of flare gas have to do it. I do believe that's the only way Bitcoin going to stay here, Bitcoin mining going to stay here for decades going forward.
So you think that one of the staying points or the staples of Bitcoin mining will be energy companies incorporating this as a supplemental aspect of their business model, particularly oil and gas as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's no other way. Why would you flare that gas?
Yeah.
There's so much gas getting flared. You first doing a bad thing for environment. And secondly, it's just a waste of money. Honestly, it's just a waste of money. At the end of the day, you can just spend a little bit of money. You're an oil and gas company. You can finance that generator. You can install that system in the field, and you can just harness that gas and convert it into cash.
Yeah.
That's another stream of revenue. And I think oil and gas companies are understanding that, and they are thinking way wider than they used before. And now they are thinking about like getting more of this. I don't know if it's going to change with this oil prices now, because now every oil and gas company, I'm sure, is focused on pumping more oil. But eventually, I think more and more oil and gas companies will be doing Bitcoin mining in their fields.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, if we have to dive into the deeper part of this next question in our next segment, that's fine. But we do have a couple of minutes that I want to open up this can of worms here. In Oklahoma, there's a big political stink, a big move about, data centers are coming into the community and this is bad, and there's pushback on noise and water use and electricity bills being handled. And I get it. I get where some of these people are coming from. But overall, these operations can be a net positive for society. And that's why I'm very pro-technology. But I want to hear your take on this dilemma here when it comes to people pushing back on these giant data centers, especially when they're AI in their communities. What's your take? How should this be handled?
Yeah, very good question. I think people are afraid of the unknown, and I think AI data centers are the unknown. They started coming into every community pretty fast, and people are worried what are the consequences of those data centers coming to the community is going to be. But I think all what people need is education. I, as a matter of fact, was part of those conversations and data forums across the country where I spoke in front of the rural communities explaining them why AI data centers are good. And what I've seen is positive feedback. When you come and tell people, look, you're not going to have an issue with the water. You're not going to have an issue with the energy bill. This is the positives you're going to get. There may be some negatives, of course, but at the end of the day, it's net positive, and they listen to you. They ask questions. They feel like they've been taken care of. But when you just come out and start digging the dirt without people even knowing what is going on, I think that's what brings a big outbreak in the community.
Yeah, I mean, and AI data centers at large are going to be a big part of national security going forward, I could imagine. So I think these things are inevitable. There's a right way to do it, and education is definitely a thing to utilize here and make sure that people have the facts. But you also mentioned that closed loop cooling systems and backup power these are solutions. Have they fixed some of the complaints that you heard based off of implementing these things?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in areas where the water is an issue, closed loop technology is the way to go. And to be honest, most of AI data center servers are going to be closed loop technology. What does it mean? It means you, in a simple words, you pump water once and you don't take water again. You have to refill it probably once in a year or so. But at the end of the day, you are not recycling water. So it's not evaporating cooling technology. It's direct to chip cooling. So water gets in, it's just recycles within the whole system. So I think that needs more education from like technical perspective, and people need to understand that, especially in the areas where the water is an issue, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, that those data centers not going to suck out all the water. And we have done a lot of educational series traveling the country explaining that to folks, because I understand. I understand the issue. Like if you have a fight for water in every area, and then you have a huge user, they're going to suck it out. Yeah. I understand the concern.
All right, well, when we come back, we're going to unpack this concern a little bit more. Got lots more to cover, so stay put. We'll be right back after this break. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back in action on the Money Block. And yes, if you were curious, we are syndicated coast to coast on BizTV. We are America's Bitcoin-focused television radio show, here to enlighten you about all things that are going on in this crazy technology that we call Bitcoin, blockchain technology. And there's a lot going on, because if you've been watching, or maybe you participate in the Bitcoin mining industry, things are changing fast. This space is always moving fast. But today, I've got a wonderful guest that I'm going to bring back on the stage here in just a second. We've been talking about where this whole industry is going when it comes to Bitcoin mining. But before I dive deeper in it with him, I just want to remind you guys that if the concept of Bitcoin or sound money, or just this idea of monetary sovereignty is new to you, well, I would check out my book, Foundations for Liberty. You can scan that QR code right there. Free download, my way of saying thank you for tuning in. And I guarantee you, you're going to learn a lot, and it'll give you the foundations, so that way when we start having these conversations about why Bitcoin's important, it'll make sense. But anyways, let's go ahead and kick it off here. On the line, I have my guest, Sergii Gerasymovych, and he is the CEO of a company called Easy Blockchain. And Sergii, I want to pick up here. When we were last segment, we were talking about there's this big hoorah, and people are upset about data centers, AI-specific data centers moving into the communities. Lots of confusion, lots of fear, and we were saying, hey, let's kind of talk this through, share some information that may comfort people if they're sitting at home watching TV right now and they're like, yeah, I've got a data center going on, getting put in, down the street. So let's talk about that. What is the biggest misunderstanding that communities might have when it comes to AI, maybe even Bitcoin mining facilities? Is it a zoning problem? Do we just need to have better zoning, solutions, or is it much more than that?
I think there are a few. The first one, my power bill is going to go up. The second one, they're going to suck out all the water in the community. And the third one is noise. And I think all of those three are not the issue. They're usually the data centers who build data centers, data center companies that build data centers in the communities. On the contrary, they lock up the energy power contracts with energy companies that is net benefit for the community, because they upfront the cost of infrastructure and they upfront the cost of generation, which becomes a net positive for the community, because now the utility company will not have to charge the local users for any upgrades in the future. Those upgrades already input in that in that contract with the data center. The second one, noise. Most of the data centers do not have noise issues. Those chillers are on the top of the buildings. It's not going to be noisier than any Walmart in your community, to be honest. And all those generators that people think that can be loud, they are, as a rule, are in the building. So you cannot hear them. They are in the building. And if they are used, they use only during the emergency and probably once and a half a year for a couple hours when they test them. that always happens during the normal business hours. And the last one, most important, is the water. Most of the technology that is the new technology that are being used for data centers for new GPUs is direct-to-chip cooling. That required not that much of water. This is not evaporating cooling, so the water is not evaporated. It's used directly in one closed loop system. So you pour the water in the system once, and then you do not need to pour it again. So this is the most important part. And additionally, I've seen instances where the data centers have been actually investing in water treatment facilities in the communities to increase the production of water in the area from which they're only going to take a fraction.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's also important to differentiate too. I mean, we've talked about Bitcoin mining and how these kind of data centers can be a real asset to the grid and local communities because it provides this demand response element that helps balance the power load. Yet AI data centers are often viewed as kind of like this leech on resources because they have to be on at all times. They can't just flip a switch and turn off. Obviously, Bitcoin miners are probably louder. But what are these? Are these perspectives valid? Is one better than the other? Explain to me your perspective.
I think for the community, the AI data center is going to be better just because it provides more revenue, more investments, and they have a little bit different kind of longevity period. They kind of be there for 15, 20 years, but that's from one perspective. But from like energy level perspective, Bitcoin miners are better because they can be curtailed any moment at the single second notice technically, and that helps you, the regular person of the community, not to shut down your lights if there is any situation where the utility has to run blackouts or brownouts. So it's I don't think it's fair to compare here like oranges and apples, but at the end of the day, both of those things are working pretty well with the communities. And the Bitcoin mining, which is a positive thing, they are like smaller. Those sites are pretty small. They are loud, yes, but they are pretty far from from residential areas, and they are using a lot of power for small footprint, which is also good for the utility because the utility can charge the Bitcoin miner for that power use, and also invest those money back into the upgrades of infrastructure. Keep in mind, most of the rural areas are served by co-ops. Co-ops are nonprofit organizations, so they reinvest money back into infrastructure. The whole structure or in their bylaws is to serve the community. So if they have more Bitcoin miners on the grid, that means that just helps everyone else in the industry and everyone else around.
Yeah, and we made comment in earlier part of the show where Bitcoin mining has been a precursor for the build out, helping to lay the foundations for this AI build out that we're seeing and the power needs that are required for it. And so one comment that I've always made to people when doing presentations about Bitcoin mining is that Bitcoin mining is going to help us continue to build our infrastructure needs when it comes to power. I mean, you can literally stick a Bitcoin miner in remote locations where it's not feasible to monetize energy and transport it from point A to point B. Do you think that trend will continue? I mean, we talked a little bit about the mobile units on the flare gas, but do you think that Bitcoin mining will still be utilized in a place where infrastructure hasn't quite been built out yet, but can be built out because all you need is maybe you need a hydroelectric dam and a satellite connection, or maybe you need something that is not as involved as the infrastructure you might need for putting an AI data center somewhere?
Yes, absolutely. Bitcoin mining is a 24/7, 365 power user. So it could be a good temporary power, bridge power, before any other industry is built. Like, for example, let's imagine there is an incentive to build a big manufacturing campus in somewhere in Oklahoma, but it's going to take time before all those industries going to come in. But electrical infrastructure has to be laid out beforehand. So Bitcoin miners can come in, build their containerized modular data centers, and be there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And when the next industry comes in, they're just going to pick up and leave. So at the end of the day, I mean, any area where there is growth, electrical infrastructure growth, that's where a Bitcoin miner can be a user. And I think we have to emphasize more the curtailment and flexibility aspect of the Bitcoin mining operation. I think it can be paired very well with any manufacturing facility, which, for example, runs from 9 to 5, but after that, that electrical infrastructure is not used. And that's when Bitcoin miners can actually be using power off grid. And yes, they will be receiving cheaper rates. But at the end of the day, instead of actually giving that power away to some other users for sometimes even negative, the utility will be able to sell that power. So I think Bitcoin mining is a good addition to any high load user for AI data center, for traditional manufacturing, and it could be embraced, especially in the areas where there's no users at this point, and they will come in the future.
Yeah, they're laying the groundwork. Okay. So we got about a minute before we have to go to break, but do you think with the way that Bitcoin mining is going and AI data centers are kind of taking the limelight, do you think hash rate becomes more decentralized or concentrated?
I think it's a very important question. I do believe that for a short term, it will be more decentralized. On the contrary, it's going to be more centralized on a short term because we still have these big companies who have stayed in the game and smaller guys cannot survive this game. But I think on a long term, and I'm talking 3 to 5 years, it will be more decentralized because that's when big companies most likely going to pivot to AI data centers, because they need to show the investors the future and the growth. And keep in mind, Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining was not designed to keep hungry investors happy. It was designed to make the money decentralized, and it has been designed as an alternative to fiat. And what we did, we just took Bitcoin mining and created a new industry out of it. But at the end of the day, I think on the long term, Bitcoin's whole thesis that was designed in the white paper going to prevail, and Bitcoin will become a hard money.
I look forward to watching it unfold. We got more with our guest, Sergei, so stay put. We'll be right back after this break. AI is here, money is changing, but freedom has never been more important. I'm Matthew J. Moore, the Money Block host on BizTV, Amazon bestseller, and Bitcoin policy advisor. Book my up to 60-minute talk, Redefining Wealth and Freedom God's Way. I'll teach your church, business, or civic group how to secure money, freedom, and faith in the digital age. This is urgent, so I'm slashing my fee from $1,000 to $500. Cover my travel, and I'm there. Scan the QR code now. Spots are filling fast. What does it mean to be physically, spiritually, and financially free? The right to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness, these were the ideas that made America. But what happens to these ideas when America's money becomes compromised? What do you do when the very thing that you're working for day after day is fundamentally designed to enslave you? Whether it was a conspiracy or not, you won't believe what is about to happen in this country. Arm yourself today with the truth and build your life on the foundations for liberty. Rediscover freedom in the 21st century and grab a copy of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. For just $11.99, you can support this radio show by finding a copy on Amazon or by going to mattjmoore.com. Again, that's mattjmoore.com. Don't wait, because freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is the final segment of the Money Block. And if you're curious, we are syndicated coast to coast on BizTV. We want to welcome all you Bitcoin newbies, lovers, and experts. Man, today's been a great conversation. We've been talking about Bitcoin mining, where the industry is going, how AI data centers are playing a part of it. And today's guest has been perfect to have on to talk about this matter because he's right in the middle of it. But his name is Sergii Gerasymovych, and he is the CEO of a company called Easy Blockchain. Sergei, I want to dive into this aspect of our conversation here. You've been involved in the mining, but now you're doing a hard pivot into AI. What kind of advice would you give to those who are involved in Bitcoin mining currently if they're trying to survive and grow?
I think it's $1 million question, Matt. I think one of the advices I would give to any business is to make sure you run efficient operation. Don't overspend on things you don't need. You need to make sure you have your finances under control, because if you don't have that in current economic environment, when things are kind of not stable, things change every day, you can be wrecked, and you don't want that. So we'll be applying to any other industry, but for Bitcoin mining, is the advice for Bitcoin miners is specific, just because in our industry, you can wake up and Bitcoin can be down 20%, and it's definitely going to influence your bottom line. So you have to make sure that you kind of keep an eye on that.
Yeah. Well, and do you have any thoughts for people who are investing in the space? We've had a very, I guess I wouldn't call it uncomfortable, but it's a very real conversation about where Bitcoin mining is and how people are making money. Recap to us the future that you see for Bitcoin mining, and is it even worth investing in operations anymore?
Very good question. I think any investment is based on belief. So if you believe in something, you definitely have to invest in that, right? At the end of the day, I think no one knows the future. There are a lot of analysts and traders and people who think they know everything. But at the end of the day, you want to invest in thinking what's going to come next. And if you believe in Bitcoin being the asset class, hard asset class, that will survive through inflation, through uncertainty, through wars, you definitely have to invest in it. Bitcoin mining is a backbone of Bitcoin. I think that's a safer way to invest in Bitcoin and have an exposure to Bitcoin, especially if you're a high net worth individual, anyone who's making over $150,000 to $200,000, because you can actually off-right the depreciation of the equipment right at the beginning when you invest in this space. That's, I think, the key thing, because before you couldn't do it, but now you can. So Bitcoin mining is basically, it's an investment into something that gets you cash every day. And if you want to stack your Bitcoin and keep it for a long time, I think Bitcoin mining is the right way to go.
So can you share where people can follow you, your work? How can they learn a little bit about what you're doing with your operation?
Absolutely. I'm on X, Sergii Gera. I'm on YouTube, Sergii Gerasymovych. I'm also having my own website. It's gerasymovych.com. And more about Bitcoin mining hosting, you can find out on easyblockchain.net.
I love it. Well, here's a question I want to throw your way. When it comes to national security, do you think countries are going to be more intentional when it comes to AI data centers and Bitcoin mining? Because even there was in Congress, there was an admiral that was asked recently about, Bitcoin being a part of power projection for the United States as far as, Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. Talk to us about that relationship. Do you think AI and Bitcoin mining will remain center focus for countries moving forward?
Absolutely. I think in the time of wars and sanctions, Bitcoin becomes an interesting asset class, because the bad countries would want to use this as a way to launder money, and the good countries would probably use it to prevent that happening. So I think America needs to focus more on cryptocurrency, on Bitcoin as a part of its financial system, and I think people in Congress are doing that. I would give a big shout out to Cynthia Lummis, who has been a big driver of it, and we have talked a lot with her about this stuff, and she's the one who's been doing Bitcoin. Bitcoin popularity shows in Congress for many years. But at the end of the day, I think AI, if we talk about that part of the business, AI data centers must be built in America. They will be built in America because that's a part of national security. AI, on the contrary to Bitcoin, has so many different use cases, especially right now in the warfare. You see the war in Ukraine, you see the war in the Middle East right now. AI is making decisions on which ship to hit, which target to hit. And I think that's a very good to have this technology under control, to have that technology under control of the adults in the room, to be frank, because you don't want the adversary to have access to AI technology. And in order to prevent adversaries to have access to that technology is to build data centers in the United States and have them built here and have them operated here on American chips.
So, okay, I've been doing a lot of asking questions here. I want to throw something your way. I want to give you the floor. If there are any thoughts or ideas that we didn't cover today that you want to share within the final minute, do you have any thoughts that you didn't get to share so far?
I think, I appreciate your time and thank you for asking those questions. I think this conversation is full of different aspects, and we talked a lot about Bitcoin. We talked a lot about AI. What I think is worth to sum it up, I think people shouldn't be afraid of AI. AI, data centers, or AI in general is a tool, and we can use the tool in a good way and a bad way, and we need to make sure we embrace it using that tool in a good way. Speaking of Bitcoin, I do believe that Bitcoin is an alternative to inflation, alternative to uncertainty. It's an alternative to gold. New generation and even older generation of people will be using Bitcoin as a hard asset class. And I think we're very, very early. At the end of the day, Bitcoin as under $100,000 is a steal. And what I would want you to think and your audience to think is like, what's coming next? What's going to be here in 5-10 years? And if the answer is that you would still be exposed to inflation, then Bitcoin is an answer. If the question is, am I going to be a good professional, a good worker in 5-10 years without knowing an AI? And the answer is no, then probably you should start learning it today.
Well put. Well put. Well, Sergei, this is all the time we have for today. So I really appreciate you coming on and having this conversation with me. That's why we do this show. And in fact, if you're watching the show and you're wanting to learn more about Bitcoin, sound money, monetary sovereignty, well, here's a QR code. Scan that. That's a free gift. It's my book, Foundations for Liberty, my way of saying thank you for tuning in. And man, this is, again, every time we have this show, I'm never disappointed. I'm always enlightened and I always learn something. All right, guys, we'll see you same time, same place. Adios.
The opinions and suggestions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants and are not necessarily endorsed by program sponsors or any station, media company, or platform broadcasting this program. This program is a product of More Media, LLC. The information in this broadcast is not intended as investment, tax, or financial advice. Matthew Moore is not a licensed investment advisor and speaks solely from his experience and opinions. All information in this broadcast is for entertainment or educational purposes only. Matthew Moore, More Media, LLC, and the company or platform broadcasting this program is not responsible for the success or failure of any person's investment decisions or purchases. Matthew Moore, More Media, LLC, and the company or platform broadcasting this program makes no and expressly disclaims all representations, warranties, and guarantees with respect to this broadcast and its sponsors. Investing in any market is inherently risky and can be financially dangerous. Invest at your own risk.